Yeah, no, you sound good, mate. You sound all right.
Cool.
Bit Mancunian, but other than that, you sound all right.
Well, I don't think any bit of equipment is going to change that.
Right, hang on a minute. Let me get settled. I've been moving around again as usual.
In, man.
Get settled. Get curtains drawn and get settled. Yeah, I've been moving about a bit as usual. My missus has been moving the living room, dining room about, and I had the old light problem again, bouncing off my head. So we've got a bit of light bouncing off something, but it's not as bad as it was. What's going on with you anyway? You messaged me before saying you might be in a wheelchair.
Yeah, it's my daughter's birthday tomorrow, eldest Maya's.
How old is she?
She's going to be 8 tomorrow, mate. I can't believe where the fucking time's gone. So obviously, it's mannequin. You know, your lad's birthday last week, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I feel your pain.
Yeah. So she's been learning how to ride a bike in lockdown. She never really cared about it, and then the time she can't get out, she wants to fucking learn how to ride a bike. So the bike she's got is too small for her. So I finally found somewhere that I could get one from. Is it built? Yeah. Are you sure it's built? So I picked it up earlier on today, and it wasn't built, Jay. And
you're joking.
To put it together, and it's all right, but she's just not going to be able to use the brakes. So it's just
really. That's like, you know what? It's so mad. I had a similar experience with my lad at Christmas, where I built his bike, and he just couldn't steer. He just. You know, as long as you just go in a straight line, and then his grandpa had to fix it for him.
So basically, yeah, my dad's crap at DIY and fixing shit anyway. So I've got no one to call on to try and save the day. Yeah, she'll be happy for 5 minutes, and then she'll find something else to do.
Do you know what it is? All right. I mean, eight's a bit different, but my lad, it was his birthday the other day, and he'd been asking for like a PlayStation and stuff. And we thought, you know what, we'll get him. Well, he's only 5, but we'll get him one. Just got him a PlayStation 4. Do you know what I mean? And he also wanted like little bits of toys and stuff, like this fake poo. I know it sounds crackers, like fake. It is literally like fake poo that you throw on the wall and it sticks to the wall. Just crap like that. I don't know. He's 5. Do you know what I mean? Come on.
Yeah.
I'm 40 and I still laugh at poo jokes, so I can't really say anything. Do you know what I mean? and like he opens the PlayStation and just sort of goes, "Yeah, thanks." Opens the poo and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's amazing." I'm like, that cost like $1.99. We're eating tins of beans because we got you a PlayStation. Do you know what? We've got a bit of a problem this week, mate.
Yeah.
Well, a massive problem. There's absolutely nothing to talk about.
It's been like the quietest week in my life. You know
what, mate? We used to have them in slow news day. No news day where you just like, what can we do? What we're going to do? What we're going to run? Do you know what I mean? Cat stuck in tree and shit like that. That's what we're going to have to do. Do you know what I mean?
Welcome. If you just joined us, this is Scotty and Motta, and of course we do have pressing things to talk about. Statues have been toppled over, haven't they? And race riots and protests the world over. Where the fuck are we living? You know, it's just the world has gone mad.
Do you know what, mate? The funniest thing for me was I was watching CNN before, and it was like Bristol was like one of the most talked about segments of it. And you were like speaking to the mayor of Bristol, and you've got all these American presenters from CNN going like, you know, oh, and in England, in Bristol, I'm like dedicating lots of time. It's like Bristol for that sort of news cycle has become the centre of the universe for anyone who's, you know, been living in a cave. For obviously chucking the statue of now I'm going to get his name wrong. Edward Colston, is it?
Yeah, Colston. Yeah.
He says that after living in, you know, anyone who's living in a cave like me can't remember his bloody name. I'm not living in a cave. I'm just very forgetful and stupid. For chucking that in the is it a canal or a river or what? What is it there?
It's where the boats come in and out. Is it the harbour? The harbour. That's it. Yeah.
Nah, yeah. We went there, didn't we? We filmed there.
Yeah, both nautical men there, aren't we? It's got water.
Is it a canal? Is it a pond?
Yeah, we were there for the Euros. Was it Euros or the World Cup? World Cup on it 2 years ago.
World Cup, yeah. We did a bit of filming.
Yeah, I ended up dressed like a pirate running into curry houses.
That was so funny because we did forfeits. So whoever lost, we were betting on like the game. Not betting, it was fantasy football in the game. Whoever lost had to do forfeit. Scotty ended up going into chippies and shops in Bristol dressed as a pirate. Just a normal day.
And then you made me eat some raw fish, wasn't it? Or something, there was something like dry.
I had Chelly's eels on one of my forfeits, mate. They were grim. But no, on a serious note, like you said, statues in the harbour. Are you for it or what, mate? Are you about that?
Yeah, I'm all for lobbing anything in the harbour, whether it's a stolen bike, statue, used gun. That's what they're there for, aren't they? But mate, the question that should be asked is why the hell was it still there after, we're living in 2020 and slavery was a long time ago. Why are we putting these people up there as though, it's just like two fingers, isn't it, really, to anybody of colour, as far as I'm concerned. And their excuse was it was for his philanthropy. Which was probably funded by the 70,000 men, women, and children that he cargoed across the world. Philanthropy. I can't even fucking say.
Philanthropy. That's like me setting fire to my neighbour's house and then inviting them round for a bonfire and expecting praise for it. That's unbelievable. Oh, how generous of him to murder all these people and spend some of the money at Bristol. That just shows you the sort of the backwards nature, of who we revere in this country and who's sort of, what's the right word, sort of made into an icon or remembered or whatever on the back of the empire and what went on during those times. I know we'll probably get into that a little bit more, but that is probably one of the most extreme cases. I mean, there's more actually. There's more that we get into. But yeah, having someone like that. And I saw a chap on, I think he was on Sky, and he was from Bristol. And he was at the site of what was now the former site of the statue, and he was saying, I used to walk past this every day, and it was just wound me up. And I just think that's terrible, that having to see that, and just like a little reminder, not a reminder of slavery. I don't think you need a reminder, but a reminder of the fact that you can be responsible for that and still get revered in this country. Yeah,
exactly.
I don't think anyone needs a reminder of slavery, but to see sort of saying, tell you what, he might have, murdered thousands of people, but, the canal's never looked so clean since he invested in it, I tell you what. Hey, that church roof is belting. Come on. Have a day off.
It wasn't just a statue either. There was schools named after him and streets. I think the music hall. And I was having a pop at Sajid Javid the other day, yesterday, because he was saying, I detest the name Colston as much as anyone, but I grew up in Bristol and I hated that name. But you were quite happy for the £48 million refurbishment of the Colston Hall and didn't say fuck all about renaming it and stuff. And this is. I mean, there's loads of issues with it, but a lot of people on social media seem to have got the twist that they're just doing it because of violence and they want to break something down. Now, I understand when these protests and riots and shop windows get through that's mindless violence, but the fact that there is a reason behind taking that person down and putting him in the fucking river, do you know what I mean? It signifies something. It still feels quite seismic as far as I'm concerned.
I saw you tweet that, yeah.
And it felt like, when the Saddam thing went down, Saddam statue, Berlin Wall, and I remember when the Arab Spring. Well, what year was the Arab Spring? 20.
Oh Jesus, I covered it as well. No, I think it's 2011 or 2012. I think it's 2011. It was. I was reporting at the time, so it would have been 20. The earliest, I think 2011, because I think I was full time reporting by this time.
Yeah, because I've always thought that when I see stuff happen either in the Middle East or America or France. I mean, France love any excuse to fucking go rioting in the streets, don't they?
Hey, what are they on their? Are they on their fifth republic now, or whatever it is? I've lost count.
But I always wondered what it would take for England to have that sort of movement or protest, and that's what it feels like. We're experiencing. We're in the middle of that now. And the thing is, it can't lose momentum if they want to make any headway and make sure we don't have these statues marking the memory of fucking murderers, slavers, or whatever you want to call them. Then we need to go around and be taking them off all. There's another one at Oxford University that stands outside Oxford University that was a slave. And then you dig back and look. Another thing that came out of the waterworks. Were you aware of that we've been paying plantation debt payoff since we finished it in 2015. So basically, when we supposedly freed all the slaves, what we did was we paid the UK, I say not we, We basically bunged them a load of money, £20 million back in the day, which was equivalent to £17 billion today. And we were still paying the families of plantation owners up until 2015. So I want to know, who the fuck are these families that have still been getting the money? You know what I mean? Through the HMRC. But what does that show up on your wage slip? All right, well, a bit about paying my national insurance. Oh, look, still getting the slave dough coming in.
How's that real? Do you know what I mean?
Real. And then the treasurer, the treasury, it's a deleted tweet, but you can find it online. You might be able to put it up on here. In 2015, when we'd finished paying the debt, they actually put a celebratory tweet out saying that fucking well done, all taxpayers have finally ended slavery. No, we fucking haven't. Seriously.
I'm sure that's a big comfort to the millions of people that are engulfed in slavery and the ones that are still feeling the repercussions to this day. The fact that we paid off that debt and the plantation owners have got what was coming to them. But
it's like, well, I mean, we will talk about for at the end of time, and we have previously how we're big fans of The Wire. But when Freeman says, if you follow the drugs only get you so far, but if you follow the money, McNulty, follow the money. You look at how our society is built and how people are in certain pedestals. David Cameron's family were funded and received money off the back of slavery. Benedict Cumberbatch. And I'm not got anything personal against him, but he has got ties to plantation money. You know what I
mean? Really? He's in 7 years a slave as well, isn't he?
Yeah, I think that's around the time it came out, and they were saying, well, shouldn't he apologise? And I'm not too sure. It wasn't him that was. Obviously, can you apologise on behalf of the family name? But if you're still reaping the benefits, which obviously a lot of families were up until 2015, then someone needs to apologise. Where's that money going? That money should, you know what? You should have to declare that.
Yeah, that crackers me. That is, I mean, I can't even get my head around that, to be honest with you. I don't even know how that's a thing, how that's allowed. And, you know, everyone's in uproar when you talk about reparations or whatever for slavery. And you're telling me that we're only just up until 5 years ago, we were giving the slave owners money, cash money. And what, in 2015? when we were still in austerity as well, just to add salt to the wound. We've not got any money. We're all skinned. Everything's shutting down. And by the way, we're going to give some slave owners from the 1800s, their families, some money. None of that makes any fucking sense at all. And it just stinks of Britain, that. It absolutely reeks of the UK. So you talk about it as a seismic event, Scotty. I get where you're coming from. I think when you say that, though, what do you see happening now? Do you think are more statues going to get thrown into the canal, or do you think people are going to have a conversation about who we revere, who we canonise almost in this country? Are we going to have sort of a debate about that and maybe see statues taken down legally? How do you see that panning out? I know you can only guess, but
yeah, I mean, for me, the conversations need to be had, and I'm sick of these sound bites of people saying that it's disgrace, it should have been taken down by a vote. The people of Bristol have been trying to get Colston's name, that statue taken down. Colston Hall's renamed since 2010 on petitions online, and people lots of coverage about it. So you need to think about who are the people that don't want the name to be changed. You need to start having conversations with that. And if we are going to move towards any sort of equal and fair society, then this can't stop now. But my issue is that who are the figureheads that are running the Black Lives Matter movement? And I know Black Lives Matter is the basis of this, but it's all racist, really, isn't it? I mean, the empire was a global farce, catastrophe, horror. And I go teaching in schools, and there's no way that is mentioned enough in schools and education. What were you taught about the empire at school? Because for me, it was, the empire was great, and we're such a fantastic country. We brought the world everything. No, we didn't. We're fucking thieves and rapists, pillaging the fucking world over. And I was thinking today, when we say Great Britain, pretty much everything that I love about this country came from fucking somewhere else. Honestly, apart from Yorkshire puddings, I couldn't think of fucking anything else except for Yorkshire puddings today. I was really fucking chips.
Eccles cakes, down at my old stomping ground. Don't forget that.
But it's true, and I hate just the whole Great Britain and stuff. And it's not. It's just a fallacy, and we need to start being more honest and going forward as to how this country got the wealth it did and why we are where we are before we can start moving forward. It needs to start in the classrooms of education. We need to be having more conversations in Parliament. But like I said, who are the figureheads of the movement? Because I'm seeing a lot of historians on TV, but are they leading it? Or is it fucking Tim Pot, John Barnes? Do you know what I
mean? Don't get me started.
So that's where we are. It can be a seismic event. I just think that I've never seen England get to the point where we were pulling down statues of well-known racists and slavers that should never have stood there in the past. So it has to be, for it to be a seismic event, we need to all push forward and try and make amendments across every facet of society, from the schools to society to Parliament.
I mean, this to me, I get where you're coming from. It feels different than we had. When were the riots? Was it 2011? The riots when Mark Duggan. No, but I wanted to just explain to about this, why this is different. That came on off the back of obviously the Mark Duggan shooting. But I felt those riots were, a lot of people were rioting that didn't have any clue about Mark Duggan. They weren't rioting, they were looting. And I'm not saying all of them, because I covered it as a reporter, and I know a lot of people were angry and felt that the police were against them and things like that, and that spun out. But, you know, you're not running in JD and grabbing trainers and tops because Mark Duggan got shot. You're not, right? Let's just have it right. That's nothing to do with this. But you are throwing statues of slavers into the canal or the harbour because you're angry about prejudice and racism and the fact you live in a country where someone who's enslaved, you know, people the same colour as you is revered and canonised, and you're not having it. And I get that. And it is different. You know, this feels more like the sort of the poll tax riots than the 2011 riots, where people are angry and they want change. They want to see something tangible happen. Do you know what I mean? Now, whether that is the taking down of certain statues, I don't know. Whether it is some sort of reform, I don't know. What annoyed me about this was a little bit, there was this debate that went on Sunday. I think this was before the statue went down, where I think it was Matt Hancock who, if he tells you it's raining, leave your umbrella at home. He doesn't know the truth if it smacks him in the face. He's an absolute charlatan. But he was on the telly he was doing the media rounds, which is a waste of time because he never sells anything worth listening to. He just chats up some wibble. But he was getting asked about black members in the cabinet, and there are none. And it became a thing where it was like, well, can you name it? Oh, well, and he was sort of going around the houses just saying there was none. And then it became a thing where people saying, oh, there's no black people in the cabinet and rah. And I think you're missing the point here, because I think the last black member of the Tory cabinet was Kwasi Kwarteng, who doesn't speak for me, doesn't speak for the majority of black people that I know. He's proper right wing, and just sticking a black person in the cabinet doesn't get you anywhere. That's pointless. And it's sort of like these conversations you're having, it's like, well, if you had a black person in the cabinet, no, that's not going to get you anywhere. It needs to be the right person. It needs to be someone who's representing. It needs to be someone who's, understands what's going on. And I think sometimes the argument just gets shifted into nonsense almost and pointlessness. And right now, like you talk about it being seismic, we've got an opportunity here to have a conversation about certain things. And one of those things is, I know you keep saying about back to the statue, but is how we treat our history, how we address it, how is it taught in schools. And with you, the Great Britain was a source of pride when I was at school. You would thought the empire was wonderful and fantastic, and we went all over the world, and the sun never set on our empire, and it was all wonderful. And if you're 8 or 9 years old, you're thinking, oh right, yeah, Great Britain, you know what, Rule Britannia, we had it, mate. We took over the world. Not we murdered millions of people and enslaved them. But oh no, we abolished slavery after we started it. After we rolled the grenade in there, we ran off. Do you know what I mean? It's like that doesn't get covered. And then you've got this thing about the statues and who is revered and how certain people are still held up to as some sort of icon of the British Empire when they should be treated with disdain. And it's sort of, now that has gone a step further, which is something I know you wanted to chat about, with a person who's arguably, I think in a poll, was voted one of the greatest Britons ever. And now it's become a bit of a thing about him, is Winston Churchill, because he's got a statue. He's got lots of statues, but he's got one at Whitehall that, the Stone Island crew are defending, apparently. I think they're all, Tommy Robinson and his band, the Muppets, are going down there because there's talk of that becoming a scene. I don't think it will be, if I'm being honest. But there's that conversation with someone like Churchill. Again, you were taught in school, and up until recently, I thought he was this great guy who led us through the Second World War, defeated Nazism almost single-handedly when everyone else wanted to give up, and he's a true hero. And then you think, it's amazing that you have to actually research this. It's not obvious that the guy was more or less responsible for the death of millions of Indians. That's like not knowing that Hitler was behind the Holocaust. That's like not knowing that. Do you know what I mean? Imagine like you said, you know what I found out as well? He was responsible for the death of millions of people. People think, what? You didn't know that about Hitler? But it's not that spoken about when it comes to Churchill. Churchill himself is spoken about a lot in this country, year in, year out. But some of the crimes he committed, because that's all I can call them, aren't. And it's amazing to me that we can almost brush that under the carpet.
Yeah, I mean, it's convenient, isn't it? I suppose the people who are in charge of our history are the ones who write the books and teach the lessons. My dad fucks me right off with this. With you and
your dad's relationship is ace, and this is the relationship me and my son are going to have when we're older. I guarantee it.
Well, I hope not. I know. You drink less than my dad, but the reason is that he was raised like he very much. I mean, he was brought up. He was born in the '60s, and he's very much fucking England's great and the Empire and all that sort of stuff. But his dad was fucking Indian. Do you know?
Yeah.
Do you know what
Yeah.
it's like? But and was fucking abused to the point that he actually ran out. I mean, there's probably more murky stuff than that. It'll be easy watching this fucking podcast. But anyway, so my dad's biological dad fucked off. But he was experiencing massive racism because of the colour of his skin. Yeah, my dad was like, oh yeah, don't talk bad about Churchill and don't talk bad about fucking England and stuff. And Churchill was a horrible, horrible cunt. He really, really was. And I'm sorry. It's not mutually. Is it mutually exclusive that you can be you can be racist and still be in charge of England to win the war? And when people are touting him as being the man that won the war, there was 2 million Indians dressed in army fatigues fighting that war, as well as nations and people of colour all over the world, and people from the Caribbean that were brought over to fight on behalf of England, that we are actually ruining the fucking legacy of by having statues like Colston in Bristol. And yet these people came over here under the belief that they were part of a commonwealth, fought on behalf of this country. And then when they came over in the Windrush, are treated like absolute fucking shit, like second-class citizens. And that's your man Churchill. You want to do any digging upon Churchill about how he spoke about fucking uncivilized tribes and fucking Indians? And I'm not going to use the racist rhetoric that he used, but it shouldn't. If you're going to talk about someone, you need to give a well-rounded figure, and that's the issue. And for me personally, whenever I see Churchill, because I know the history of it, and because I know the history of my dad and where the bloodline's from on that side, it does fucking rub me up the wrong way. In the same way that fucking when and this is something that's been tarnished by me. I seen when the young lad was trying to burn a British flag the other day. And which was fucking ridiculous, and it was stupid, and it was a young kid, and I'm going to say he was ill-advised by someone, because like the looters that was in Manchester in 2011, I don't think he actually knew what he was doing. But I find it equally offensive whenever I see the Union Jack. All I see is fucking the Stone Island mob. They do as much damage for the Union Jack as I've seen anybody else done.
I mean, I agree with loads what you're saying there. I was a Churchill fan growing up. I'll be honest with you, I was. I was into
my album was a bit dodgy.
Yeah, his second album was terrible. It's just beige. Do you know what I mean? There was no hits on that. But I love these speeches. My granddad fought in the Second World War. I love these war stories, and he obviously revered Churchill. And we'll fight them on the beaches and the finest hour speeches and all that. And I love that. And then, like you say, when I began to scratch beneath the surface, it was like, wow, actually, this guy is a real piece of work. Do you know what I mean? To say it lightly. And I think you can respect the fact that we won the Second World War and he played a part in that. Obviously, defeating Nazism was a big thing. I've heard some people almost dismissing that, going, oh, well, if it was only swapping one bad rulers for another. No, defeating National Socialism was massive and needed to be done, and, was one of the best things that we've done recently was stopping Hitler, because regardless of what you think about Churchill, Hitler was still a horrible, murderous, just genocidal anti-Semitic maniac. So I don't think there's any arguments there with this sort of, this is like the alt-right garbage. They're not racist, they're alt-right. Well, they're not, they're just fucking fascists. They're just racist fascists. So let's not paint them differently. So that, that is a positive thing. But as you said, you can't ignore what's gone on, the things he's done, and what that represents as well. Was it the Bengal famine and stuff like that? It's fucking horrible. It's horrible. And I think what sort of the other point you mentioned about the Stone Island and the Yaxley Lennon mob, whatever the fuck he's called, is they sort of jump on the military and war and stuff like that, and this idea and the British ethos, and it's theirs, and they're going to stand up for the Union Jack and stuff. And it's nonsense. I mean, if you really care that much about the Union, the army and all that stuff, go and join the fucking army if they'll have you. Do you know what I mean? But they probably won't, and I think it's probably a good job they won't, because the last thing we want is half of these muppets with guns. But they don't join the army. Just, half of them are just jobs looking for an excuse to go out and get levered, and that's the big men on social media. And I've covered EDL rallies. I've covered rallies before in Manchester, in Rochdale. I covered one in Rochdale. I've spoke about it here, and it was just, just idiots. And I say that wholeheartedly. They just didn't have a clue between them. So yeah, it has been sort of hijacked by them, and it becomes this thing. And I think with the Churchill thing in particular, I do think we've got to tread carefully here, because what I don't want to see is this become sort of like, yes, I want to see action, I want to see change, and I want to have these conversations we're having, especially about empire and our history. But what I don't want to see is it becoming like a sort of civil war scenario. And I know that sounds melodramatic, but that can happen. You get young lads, like you said, you mentioned the lad who's burning Union Jack, lads like that who are angry or upset, and then you get all these in the other side of the coin, and it clashes, and it just becomes something that we don't really need right now. Yes, we need to be having change and reform and dialogue, and sometimes that has to come with a bit of action, but I don't really think a sort of civil war and a riot over Churchill statues is the way forward. If you want to have a conversation about getting removed, somebody's removed, then I'm all about that, and I'll have that conversation with you, and let's do that. But let's not just have us against them mentality. We've had too much of that in this country, and we really have. And I think we need a little bit less of it, because the last few years since post-Brexit, during Brexit, have been as divisive in this country as I can remember. Honestly, and I mean that. And I've lived, like you, I've lived through the 80s. In the 90s, when we've seen some, pretty horrible stuff going on between, races and towns and stuff like that, and not getting on and clashing, whatever. But Brexit has brought out the worst in a lot of that. And I think now, more than ever, we need a little bit of reconciliation, but, not at the expense of change. I'm not saying we'll go, all right, okay, then, yeah, you know what? Allow it. Let's just carry on. The King Leopold, we'll leave that statue up. Not an issue. No. I'm all about let's get it. Let's have a dialogue and get some of these shifted.
Yeah, because done in a civilized way.
Yeah, because the problem is as well, we've got dozens of these statues around the country of so many figures from British history, not even from British history, from world history, who, when you look at what they've done, you think that is fucking horrible. Do you know what I mean? And we talk about being educated and knowing our history and knowing, the sort of where we've all come from and all that sort of stuff, then that's part of it. And, you need to have these conversations. And I thought, I don't agree with everything that Keir Starmer said, but when he talks about some don't need to be statues, some need to be in a museum, I get that.
Yeah.
You have horrible things in museums. You have, I've been in a museum and seen fucking Nazi tanks. Do you know what I mean? You won't go and put them in the middle of Trafalgar Square. So I get that. Yes, you should learn about history, but you don't have to have it revered in this way that we seem to do in this country, because we're better than that. I think we are. And I think there's a lot of decent people here that want change, and we need to sort of keep pushing for it in any way we can. And, I get why people did what they did in Bristol, because that must be a real kick in the teeth to see that shit in your face every day. And to have tried, like you said, to have got change and not had any. Yeah. Must be even worse. So hopefully we can see some positive change. Talking of leaders, one man who's seen as a leader who gave a speech, AJ, Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
Hey, did you like that crap segue?
Yeah. You used to work at the radio, right?
I was terrible. I wasn't a presenter. Fuck off. He gave a speech that rattled a few cages.
Yeah.
To say the least. You watched it all, didn't you? I I did what I usually do with things, watch the clip of it on Twitter, and then formed an opinion after I'd checked what everyone else's was.
Everybody else tell you what you're supposed to feel.
What are the people I follow saying? Right? Yeah, that's my line then.
So true. I'm not going against them. Fucking hell.
Yeah. The people that I respect. What's their party line? Yeah, well, I'm going with that then.
Social media, politics, fucking hell. Stand up for yourself, man.
I know. You know what I mean? Sick of deleting tweets when I do that.
I'm always the same. If I haven't got a like within 30, with about like 1 minute 30, I'm like, shit, delete something.
The ratio. If it's 20, 40 comments and 1 like, you're in trouble. Mate, everyone does it. Everyone's guilty. Anthony Joshua, was he? Am I right in thinking he was channeling his Furious Styles?
For me, well, when I first saw it, I did it. I actually read the comments first, and I read it. I think I read. Is it Mike Graham who's on TalkSport?
Well, mate, yeah, but you know what? The two Mikes, Mike Paddy and Mike Graham, is it?
It was one of them fucking chuckle brothers. Anyway, and he said something about, I hope AJ's giving back his money after saying he only wants to put it into black businesses. And I was just about to get in the car when I read that, and I thought to myself, he can't have possibly come out and said that. And then I saw the edited version that had been passed around, been clipped, to help fucking the alt-right or whatever. And I thought, that's a bit strong. And I read the whole thing through. I watched the whole 2 minutes of the clip. And he doesn't say, he says their money, give them their money back, and let's fund into black businesses. And we were talking about Killer Mike the other day, in the way he was promoting, and you should put more money into black businesses. I don't think there's as much I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but I don't think there's as much of an economic divide. And I live in quite a multicultural area as there is. Like a lot of white people or mixed colours use different colour businesses in my area. You know what I mean? But I think in America, especially in the South, that really isn't the case. So I understand when Killer Mike's saying it. But then when he said their money, and I was like, what? Who does he mean their money? So I'm going to go err on the side of caution that I don't think Anthony Joshua is racist. I think that he might have been caught up in the moment. But then when he's saying don't use their money, and then he's just got like £50 million off the fucking Saudi Arabia regime that have one of the worst humanitarian fucking, especially for black Arabs, that they treat like fucking shit. The amount of deaths that they've been in their prisons at the hand of the Saudi police, and yet he wants to talk about stand up against racism. Well, I want to see him fucking give the money that he's taken from that, and then give it to the Black Lives Matter movement. Because I think when you're going to put yourself on a pedestal and make bold claims that you're going to do this, that you want people to do this, then this is what we need. We need people like AJ, who's such a public figure, to start leading by example. That's what needs to happen. And then afterwards, it came out that what actually wasn't his speech that he'd written. It was being passed around, and I don't think anybody wanted to read it out. And then he was reading somebody else's words.
Right, okay. I mean, that all makes sense. The reason I said Furious Styles, it reminds me of that scene in Boys in the Hood, where he says, you go into Korea, we only see career-owned businesses. I get that, and I think, to a certain degree, I think at times one of the disappointing things is when I know I go on about a lot about reporting and my time as a reporter, but that is sort of my way and of the way I've experienced a lot of society and getting into the issues of crime and the news is when I worked in it. And I used to see a lot of divisions I used to work in South Manchester quite a lot of divisions there between, it was sort of coming, you mentioned it the Gunchester times, it was coming towards the end of that, but there was a lot of sort of gangs still going on, and it was deflating to see, you've all got these same economic and social problems, and you're arguing and fighting with each other. So there does need to be more unity within the black community, 100%. I think there's certain issues that need to be addressed there, and I'm all for sticking together, not at the expense of becoming segregated or, it's us against them, but as a community being strong and having that sort of camaraderie and that sort of brotherhood that you want. So I get that. If that's one of the points he's making, yeah, I'm all for that. But you're right in the sense of, we sort of have selective attitudes towards racism, and what's good and bad racism almost, and it's like, well, what the racism goes over there in Saudi or wherever, that's not on. But the racism that's going over on in in Europe or whatever, or the racism, sorry, in Saudi Arabia, that's okay, or we'll turn a blind eye. But the racism in Europe, we're not having that. And you do have to be sort of more honest about it and be more sort of just decent about it. When you see it's wrong, it's wrong. It doesn't matter whether it's happening in Saudi Arabia or it's happening in South Manchester. If it's wrong, call it out. So there is a hypocrisy. But saying that, I don't think AJ hasn't got a right to speak, and I'm glad he has spoken out. I think there's been some real positive speeches recently. John Boyega, the Star Wars actor, has been an absolute superstar. I'm all for him and what he's been saying, and he's more or less just been speaking from the heart and just saying, you know what, I've had enough, and fuck it, and fuck racist white people is what he said. And people still call it out. Right? It's like, come on. Do you know what I mean? People trying to twist that. And it's like, listen, if you're not racist, he's not talking about you, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, because people just see the word white, don't they?
Yeah.
Like, thinking that I'm like, it's not pointing at you.
No.
It isn't aimed at, unless you're the second part of the sentence. It's what call to do with you.
That's like saying, fuck white paedophiles, and you're going, white? What?
Yeah.
No. So, you know what I mean? You're missing the most important part of that, and that's unless you're a paedophile, you don't need to worry. So, you know what I mean? It's like, quick, get outraged, quickly. Give me that outrage, man. Inject it into my veins. On the flip side of that coin as well, what I talked to you about, you mentioned Shaved Javid before. Yep. Priti Patel was speaking in House of Commons at the day recording about her experiences of racism. Now, if you're an alien coming down from a different planet and you watch this speech, you'd be moved and you'd be impressed. The fact you've got an Asian Home Secretary in Britain talking about her experiences of racism, getting called the P word at school and experiencing all that stuff and rising to the very top of British politics. That's almost heartwarming until you actually read up on the policies that Priti Patel has enacted and encouraged and her attitudes and some of the things she's done. And it actually made me angry in a way. And it's sad because that should be inspiring. It should be something you go credit, regardless of whether you're a Tory or not. You should be able to go, you know what, fair play. But I can't get on board with it because I'm like, that makes it worse for me, what you've done.
You've experienced all that.
Yeah,
you're not going to change any of the policies. I completely agree.
Yeah, you've come up with some of these ideas and policies by her own admission. I think she said that under her sort of freedom of movement laws, her own parents would not have been able to come into the UK, which to me is just absolutely mind-boggling. She was also the champion of bringing back capital punishment for many years. If you ever see her on Question Time when Ian Hislop absolutely just tears her a new one, it's just embarrassing when she's trying to defend her attitude towards capital punishment, and he points out about all the miscarriages of justice we've had in this country, and that those people would now be dead illegally because they didn't do anything wrong, and you couldn't bring them back and you couldn't give them compensation, and she's just got nothing to say. And I just think that it just saddens me because then people look at it and go, she's experienced racism and she's all right with this. She's down with it. Savage Javid's Asian, he's down with it. Do you know what I mean? So we're all right.
It's like you were saying about Matt Hancock when he was going about, like, when he was saying the black members in Parliament. If you're an Asian person and they're your sort of your people in Parliament, and then they're not speaking, they're speaking against you in many ways by their policies. What sort of figureheads are you?
Exactly. Does she speak for your family, your Asian members of your family? Is she the voice that they agree with, that's talking out for them? Is she helping them? No.
My wife's Asian. My wife's Asian. There's no fucking way that Priti Patel or Sajid Javid is talking for her. But we can go across the fucking the colours of MPs. Not one of them speaks for me, mate. I honestly, they're all a fucking. And this when we're talking about reform, it needs to, you got to strip it all the way back, because who the fuck do they speak for?
I'll give you one. There's a couple that I know and have spoken to who sort of have impressed me. I've never met this one though. I've never met David Lammy, but I like a lot of what he's got to say.
Yeah, Lammy's alright. Yeah.
And I think he's grown. I think if you went back a few years, David Lammy, to where he was then, to where he is now, you see him, he's grown into his role as a politician. I think he talks a lot of sense. I think he says things that need to be said. I don't always agree with him all 100% of the time, but a lot of the time I do. And I think he's got a good balance of what is going on. I think he represents Tottenham in his own constituency and on the nationally as well. And I think he is a good voice, and I think he's a positive voice. And I remember when I was at uni, in my second year at uni, I lived with there was me and 3 other black lads that lived together. They were all younger than me. I was a mature student, and they loved David Lammy. They loved him, and he was like an inspirational figure for them. It was like, look, because he was in the cabinet at the time. Labour was still in power. And I think he was the universities or whatever, higher education secretary. He was a minor cabinet position, but he was in the cabinet. And they were like, oh, look, yeah, there's the man in the cabinet. He's just great, David Lammy. I don't think he should just have tokenism. I'm not saying that, but I think he was a sort of an inspirational guy. I think he's growing so on. I like what he's got to say, and I think there are others like that. But again, it's this thing, the idea of, if you just stick a brown face in there, problem solved. No, that's not, that's not like Priti Patel doesn't speak for me. Kwasi Kwarteng doesn't speak for, we saw him defending Windrush when he was on BBC.
Yeah, I seen, you put the clip out on Twitter.
You'd be amazed. You know what I mean? If that was someone in the pub, you'd be scrapping with him. You would. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? The guy in the studio couldn't believe what he was hearing. And he more or less said, you don't talk for me. It doesn't matter if we're the same colour. You're saying nothing that speaks for my community. So, yeah, this idea that, let's just... And that's what worries me now, because I reckon Boris Johnson, in his next reshuffle, will probably just stick quietly. And then he'll be like, look. It's like David Brent, when he's got his black mate. Look. Do you know what I mean? It's embarrassing. We should be, but this is where we're at with this government in a minute. I mean, Corbyn, no matter what you felt of him, was far more diverse in his sort of shadow cabinet, and he was willing to push the envelope there. But I don't expect the same sort of thing from the Tories. I mean, I think it personally be nice if there was more people in that cabinet that weren't just from Eton, let alone black and mixed race. That'd be a fucking start.
Yeah. If it wasn't the fucking class, the obvious class divide between MPs and the working men, do you think? I might be going off on a tangent, but
go on, please.
Do you think it works, the system that we're fucking? Because I've always have a huge bugbear in that when we're born into a system or this illusion of choice of this democracy that we have no say in how it is shaped. But we have to run by rules that were set by fucking dead blokes that was the middle 1800s, where when they started setting rules of what Parliament are, and we're sort of forced into it and have to sort of negotiate around it. And you look at, and I think America is very similar in terms of Barack Obama, whether it's personal mistakes, but in many ways, from his own admission, he wasn't able to do certain things because of the Senate behind him. And I just always wonder that can we not devolve to a city? To cities where we're in control of our own sort of issues that way rather than on a national level.
Well, that's what, devolution locally has been spoken about a lot. And we know we've got Metro mayors, we've got Andy Burnham, obviously, in Manchester. And it's interesting that maybe that we might see more of that on the back of COVID. I'm not saying this is a positive thing in COVID for anyone trying to twist my words, but the fact that you may end up having regional lockdowns, you may end up having to address it differently locally to the point where you have to give more power. I know that's been happening anyway, but more power to the Metro mayors or whatever. So maybe that could work. Maybe that is a better way of doing things, because even at a local level, things can be so different just from one postcode to the next. You know it better than anyone, Scotty, where you live and where I live as well. I mean, Swinton, I'll give you an example. Swinton and Worsley are next to each other. You can cross the street and go from Swinton to Worsley. Do you think the people in Worsley have got the same problems as the people in Swinton? And that's just a local level. Do you know what I mean? So you go nationally and it's like, does it work? Do you have the right representation? Is it fair when these laws are passed that affect everyone? Yet for some people, they're going to hit them a lot harder. And we saw that with austerity. We've seen it. There's been such a sort of Cockney-centric attitude towards everything as well.
Oh, mate, fuck me.
It just annoys me. And that's not a dig at people that live in London. I'm talking about the politicians here, where you've seen so much focus on everything about London, more money going into London and the areas surrounding London than is coming in here up north. And I saw it first time with austerity. I went to budget meetings. There's hours in my life I'll never get back. But I went to budget meetings in Lancashire and in Salford and in Trafford as well. People having to make tough decisions and having to cut millions off a budget that was already stretched. And it was harsh. And then when you see in places like Surrey and Kent or wherever getting the same amount of money as Salford's getting or more, it's infuriating and it doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, I think you're right. It's a deep. I mean, all democratic systems are flawed anyway. I mean, you look at the Electoral College in America. Hillary Clinton gets more votes and doesn't win the presidency. As you said, Barack Obama, a load of kids get shot in Sandy Hook. He tries to bring in one of the most obvious pieces of legislation when it comes to gun laws. I think it was mentally ill people can't have guns, and he gets defeated in Congress. I mean, it's bonkers. It is, but it's not. It's not going to change. What worries me is we're getting further away from that, where you're going to have like gerrymandering and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? And try to suppress votes, and that's what worries me, because some of these people in power, these sort of the far right, not far right. Well, you could argue they are from the far right, but the right wing are trying to make it more difficult for certain people to get a vote. Certain people, when it's you're looking at how the borders are changing and stuff like that. That worries me, because I think now more than ever we need every voice to be heard, and we don't need people having difficulty voting. We don't need people's vote not being cast or not counting the way it should, and that's what really worries me, because I see that on both sides of the pond. I see it in America. Trump is up to all sorts of shit with voting. He's already coming out with this voter fraud garbage, obviously with a view to trying to make it more difficult for people he knows will vote against him to vote, which is generally the working classes and minorities. So if he had his way, you'd have like 12 types of ID and a blood sample to cast a vote, and you'd have to do it in person. Do you know what I mean? It's a fucking joke. And I worry that similar things are happening here. We need to be mindful of that. We need to be conscious of it, and the press needs to be all over it as well. This is the big thing for me is, we know that the press can be partisan. We know that there's a few men at the top that own a lot of the media, but there are still a lot of great journalists out there, and I do mean that. And I think that they need to be on top of this sort of stuff, and people need to be accessing this information and questioning the information that you access. Do you know what I mean? Because if you read, and I know it myself. I know if I read, and I read a lot of different newspapers, I know if I read the Telegraph and I read the Guardian, I'm going to see the same story written in different ways. I know that. And I know also what suits me and my views. So I'm more likely to read the Guardian and believe it and buy into that than I am the Telegraph. Do you know what I mean? Not all the time, but most of the time. So I think people need to be conscious of that. But yeah, you're right what you're talking about, because it is flawed. And what worries me is people just get disillusioned to the point where they don't even fucking bother anymore. They don't even bother voting.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
After the whole Brexit farce and all that, and I'm at that point now. I don't know if I'll vote when the next one comes.
Not sad as me, man, because you're a intelligent guy who reads up on stuff, who's got a voice, obviously you use it well, and who cares. You've got a family as well. You've got as much skin in the game as anyone, and it's like you're at the point like, what the fuck is the point? Do you know what I mean?
And that's it. I think my vote is that I don't vote. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I don't buy into the system anymore. For me, it's fundamentally flawed, and it needs to. When we're talking about changes and having people representations from class and colour, then people at the top don't want that.
But you know what, Scotty, you could do? You could run for councillor, and you might say I ain't got the time, the system, but you could. Mate, I just called Winston Churchill a cunt. I'm not too sure how I go down it. Mate, you've got the Labour vote anyway. Don't worry about that.
I've always thought about doing it.
You know what, mate? I used to interview loads of councillors. That's probably my bread and butter interviews I used to do. A lot of these, I interviewed a mum who grew up near me, who the park was dirty. She arranged it to get cleaned. Neighbourhood initiative, and then became a councillor. A guy who grew up near me in Python, which was as working class as you can get, proper, like, I don't think anyone from Python is going to disagree with me. It's a rough area, it was. Do you know what I mean? We spoke about it before. He went on to become actually the youngest ever council leader in the country, or the youngest council leader at the time in the country for the Tories, Sean Anstey. And he grew up in Python. Now, I don't agree with Sean Anstey's policies, I'm not a Tory, but fair play, I think he actually is better, and he's an openly gay as well, you know what I mean? Which was not many sort of young, openly gay Tory councillors out there that rise to the head, and he was the head of Trafford Council, or Trafford Council leader. So, people, just average people, for want of a better word, can make a difference other than just voting. You can go out and you can run and you can have a voice in the council and take it from there. And I think people should. I think they should, because too often not, we think, you know what, it's all corrupt. And I get that. It's all corrupt. There's no point doing anything about it. I can't do anything about it. My vote's wasted. But then you think, you know what, you could actually take it a step further and go the other way and go, you know what, I'm not having this. I'm going to run. And you could run. I've seen people have ran because a school's going to get shut down. So they've ran on as an independent against the school shutting and got in as a councillor and voted against it. Do you know, it's like things like that. So I think people should always sort of, look into that, because, you don't have to have gone to Eton to become a politician. And to be honest with you, it's better that you haven't, because at least then you understand what fucking real people are going through and what real life is like, rather than, what the Bullingdon Club want you to think. So no, it's sad that people are going to listen, but I'm hoping that maybe, again, going back to our earlier point about this seismic event, maybe that can lead to more people getting involved. Yeah. Because we do have a lot of good voices out there, mate. And the thing is as well, you're at a position now, years ago, even 15 years ago, if you ran for council or you ran for anything, how are you talking to the people? How are you talking to people in your area, your ward, your constituency? You go knocking on doors, you're delivering flyers, all that shit. Now, mate, you do a tweet, you do a Facebook group, you're speaking to them. Do you know what I mean? You yourself could release a song or whatever. You could, do you know what I mean? There's so many ways. We're doing this now. We're on YouTube. You could do a YouTube channel and say, I'm running.
Yeah, the way of contact.
Yeah, so you can get out there and you can speak to the people that you could call upon to vote for you. So you're at an advantage now. We probably, one of the only times in history you've been able to directly reach everyone. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's important that people look into that, because the best voices are unheard, aren't they? The ones that no one's really listening to, and it's like, you get the same old cyborgs getting churned out half the time, where it's just fucking, you see them on the telly on Question Time or whatever, and you just like bloody robots, and you think, this person knows absolutely nothing about my life and what I'm going through, and how, and how are they meant to be representing me? Like going back to Pretty Patel, she does a speech like, and you think, fantastic, I'm all about that. I've been through racism myself growing up. But at the end of it, you look at her voting record and her policies and you think, she's not speaking for me. She's doing the opposite. You know what I mean? Right.
You've convinced me. I'll be the Carcetti of South Manchester.
The Carcetti. Hey. If there's a black candidate, do you want me to run to split the vote like he does in The Wire?
Yeah, and then I'll bring you on as my campaign manager. That's an in-joke. If you have to watch the
that's not like me saying trying to get racist. You watch The Wire.
Let's move on to more comedic stuff, I suppose.
Yeah, please, come on.
A tinge of racism. Why is John Barnes always rolled out when...
don't, Scotty.
What? It's 11 o'clock. I don't want to piss you off before you go to bed. Or it's like gone 11. Tell me about John Barnes. Why is he the voice of the black people whenever there's race issues?
Right. For starters, right, people that just tune in or don't know a lot about John Barnes or my views on John Barnes, right? John Barnes went through racism in the 80s as a footballer, one of the first black prominent footballers in this country. And he went through it as he got abused, he got banana thrown at him, and he was sort of held up as someone who dealt with racism in the right way and opened up a lot of eyes and made people sort of change their opinions on racism, stuff like that, because of the way he handled himself. And there was a time when, if you'd have asked me this question 10 years ago or whatever, I'd have probably said, oh yeah, John Barnes, despite the fact he plays for Liverpool or played for Liverpool and, I was a massive United fan, you can't fault him for what he's done as a footballer and as someone dealing with racism. But he has now become just an absolute joke. He has. And it's like, he's wheeled out all the time as a sort of spokesperson for race, on racism. And his views are they're just ridiculous, for want of a better word. And I'll give you some examples, because people are going, what are you talking about? For starters, right, here's an example of what John Barnes did. In the 80s, the Liverpool team had a fancy dress party. He turned up in Ku Klux Klan gear. He came up in a white hood and the Ku Klux Klan gear. That was his fancy dress. And it's famous that someone, the guy on the door said, you can't come in here dressed like that. John Barnes is going to be, and he lifted his up when it's me. That's not okay. That's not funny. That's not all right. That's not irony. It's, that's disgusting. I don't care what colour you are. It's just fucking stupid. But he's become a spokesman. And I've just, I did a sort of thread on it. When Liam Neeson admitted that he wanted to kill any black person, that when I think his friend was attacked by a black person, he admitted a few years ago that at the time he wanted to go out and kill any black person he could get his hand on. John Barnes praised him and said he deserved a medal for that. He defended Amber Rubb when she used the word coloured. John Barnes said, yeah, that's fine. That's, there's nothing wrong with using that word. when Jadon Sancho spoke out against racism. At the time, Jadon Sancho, I think, was 18 years old. Jadon Sancho did a heartfelt post about racism, speaking out about it about a year ago. And John Barnes just hammered him, said he needs to go out in the real world and basically shut his mouth. He stuck up with Luis Suarez. He said there was a witch hunt against Luis Suarez when Luis Suarez abused Patrice Evra. He said that there's loads of crap black players, which shows that the racism isn't an issue. I mean, I could go on, but I won't. Recently, he's been sort of towing the party line because everyone's speaking out against racism. You've seen him on the telly, and he's been less idiotic than normal because he's more or less saying, we need to speak about racism in society, and, he's right, we do. But by and large, mate, and what pains me about John Barnes is his words justify a lot of what racists think and say, and then they go, well, John Barnes says that.
Yeah, that's sort of like the black seal of approval, isn't it? If someone of John Barnes' stature is okay with that sort of thing, then it sort of gives you the right, doesn't it, as opposed to acting
of course, what Liam Neeson wants to kill a black guy deserves a medal. Well, John Barnes said that. Yeah. Amber Rudd says coloured. John Barnes is okay. We can say coloured. You know what? No, he's not speaking for me. He's not speaking for a lot of people I know. He's just speaking for himself, and a lot of what he's saying is just embarrassing. It is, and people like going back to the whole dressing up as the Ku Klux Klan outfit. That shows the mentality, and it's almost like John Barnes. When you're a victim of racism, right, I think you can go one of like four ways. I think if you're a victim of racism growing up, you can fight against racism and fight against the racists. You can just ignore it. You can reach out and try and sort of understand it and come to some sort of common ground, or you can almost join them. You can join that mentality. Do you know what I mean? And I think in many ways, John Barnes almost, I'm not saying that he's become far-right racist or whatever, but it's almost like he's embraced it and joined in. Do you know what I mean? So I'm going to go dressed as a Ku Klux Klan. You know what I mean? That's what I'm going to do. It's going to be hilarious. Oh, yeah, you want to use horrible language? Yeah, that's okay. You want to kill black people? Yeah, that's fine. No, it's not.
That's like my dad's syndrome. What I'm going to call my dad's syndrome is that when I did that poem the other week, and I was referring to the sort of racist language that was directed towards him, and he used to be called Little P word.
Yeah, P word.
The Popeyes mate. And my dad turned around and goes, well, that's not really racist, is it? I said, really, Dad? Are you really saying that now that wasn't racist? And I grew up around him being always referred to as that, but he's like, they're just having a laugh, and that's very similar to the John Barnes syndrome. But I'm not going to make this into a therapy session about me and my dad because we'll be here all fucking night. But I want to ask, do you think John Barnes gets the airtime because he'll say something outlandish like that? Because for me, and I don't want to generalize, but I would probably say Akala is probably more sense.
Love Akala.
For black people
Love
than John Barnes, but doesn't get anywhere near the airtime on like mainstream TV. I mean, it gets on Channel 4 and the likes, but you don't see him as much on like the BBC and stuff. But why does John Barnes be rolled out as this sort of comedy? Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah.
It's not as like cartoonish voice of racism. It's like when people roll Paul Merson out to talk about football.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think for starters, he's always going to be respected because of who he is. He's one of the pioneers, whether we like it or not. But it's, our mutual friend Stephen Howson, he had Howard Gale on there on his show. Howard Gale spoke about racism in the 80s, and Howard Gale's more in tune, I think, with a lot of what you'd expect. So not, I shouldn't say expect because that sounds like, black people should act so way. But, he was dead against racism. He's more vocal than John Barnes has been. Even to the point where John Barnes' nickname was Digger. And I've seen Howard Gale in an interview once saying he would never have accepted that nickname because it's too close to the N-word. It was after Digger Barnes that he was a character in Dallas at the time. But, little things like that, he just said he wouldn't have had that. So, yeah, I think you can answer your question. I think, yes, he does come out with a sort of what a lot of white Britain wants to hear, especially from a top level. That's the sort of thing they like to hear from black people. So, yeah, we'll get John Barnes in. But he is respected, so there is that element as well. He's not, John Barnes, regardless of what you think of his opinions, he wasn't a fringe footballer who barely played or who didn't experience a lot of this stuff. But it's just, it's painful to watch for me at times. It's deflating, and it saddens me. And you're right, it's like going back to the statues. instead of just focusing on tearing down these statues, why don't we put more statues of the likes of, I don't know, someone like Mary Seacole or someone like that, you know, some black leaders, we'll put more of them up. And it's the same with this sort of thing. Instead of just wheeling out the same old tired voices, a lot of them who don't speak for me and you or other people like Akala, people like other strong, young, black spokespeople, artists or whoever, who are in tune with what's going on, get them on, give them more airtime, let them speak, and let them speak for us, you know, people like John Boyega, who has tapped into something, because 90% or 99% of black people and, you know, white people who understand it as well, get it and agree with him, you know, and yet a lot of the time the media, in the interest of the balance, will get the one voice who represents a very small minority of black people, and then the one voice who represents 99% of black people, and they'll put them together on almost an equal footing, and that's wrong. Do you know what I mean? That is wrong, because you're not representing it in the right way. Do you know what I mean? If you've got one white guy who's blatantly, absolutely goose-steppingly racist, setting fire to crucifixes in his garden and just, you know what I mean, won't even have black pudding on his plate, and then you get one normal person, or normal white person who's just, you know, isn't racist at all, you don't give them both the amount of airtime and say, well, that's balance. It's not. Do you know what I mean? Balance will be to get, I don't know, 99 normal people and the one absolute whatever.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or whatever the proportion is. So this is what pains me a little bit when it comes to the media, is that they sometimes give balance, and that feeds into it, where you get then people saying, well, he said it, it's okay. Priti Patel says these things are all right, and she's Asian, so I'm with it. And it saddens me.
The way social media is now, you can, like the Anthony Joshua thing, where you can clip it down to whatever narrative you want, put 140 character on, and all it'll take is, like I said, I got in my car, seeing it's in the AJ quote, and I somebody else might not have done any more sort of research into what the whole 2-minute speech was, and all of a sudden you just set it off, and then it just goes. But there's never any accountability for it, is there? That's when we're talking about Parliament and that system there. When we talk about the press and the media, there is never it's just, oh, that's a right wing and that's a left wing. A majority of people are going to read, like I said, whatever goes with their views. And Stephen Fry said something a few years ago, which always stuck with me. Don't read stuff that you think that you know you like. You should always read stuff that you don't like, because that'll balance your view. And that's why I always, every day, try and dip into the Daily Mail and just trying to read a diverse opinion on something, because you can get too left-wing at time. But back to the point was that, why isn't there any accountability when we're looking at the Brexit and the way Farage or the likes of Tommy Robinson, these fucking these comedy characters, are given such a pedestal, but there's never any sort of there's never anything come up about it.
No, there isn't. You know, I mean, they're allowed to spew nonsense and more or less get away with it. And I think this is what's going back to my thing earlier. You know, again, what you watch on the telly is the same what you read. Get your balanced view, do research, look into things, question things. You know, just because Boris Johnson sticks on the side of a fucking bus, don't make it so. Doesn't, does it? Do you know what I mean?
We all know now, don't we?
Yeah, still waiting for that. Maybe they could have brought some fucking PPE with it. But yeah, that's what you got to do. And I think people are intelligent. They are clever, and they often get credit for it, and they've got access to the information. It's just whether they've got the desire to do it, because some of them...
The desire, yeah.
You know, but I'm with you. I follow a few people on Twitter who send links who I don't have the same opinion of, but it gives me a little outlet into, oh, they sent a link, let's read that. And then I'll question certain things. I think you do have to have that balance. Like everything, you know, it's not all black and white, pound and pump, but there is different sides that you want to look at, and just keep your opinions open. But I think as well, for me personally, you know, there's a certain level of especially on social media, most of the people on my, especially like say Facebook, for example, everyone on my friends list more or less has the same opinion as me. I won't have right-wing opinions or people like that on there. I just think life's too short for that when it's on that medium. On Twitter, I might have one or two voices where I don't agree with them, but the vast majority of people I do agree with, because again, I don't want to spend all my days arguing on social or getting wound up. Do you know what I mean? That's just me keeping myself safe. But yeah, you know, definitely dip in and out. And I think the media needs to do that more than they do, to be honest with you. I think you're right.
Man, that's been like nearly an hour already. That's flown. We could do this for
Considering there was nothing to talk about, we haven't even mentioned Donald Trump, really. Do you know what I mean?
Well, because I think he's made a cameo in every single podcast so far. And, should we leave Donald alone for a week?
Well, we can, yeah. You know what?
You want to talk about him?
No, I mean, listen, apparently, at the time of recording, he's not done it. He's going to give a speech. He's debating whether to give a speech on race. So when we get those pearls of wisdom from, from his vast experience of growing up in the tough, racially harsh area of Manhattan's Upper East Side, then we'll share those thoughts with you. Yeah, we'll give you our analysis. But until then, we'll have a break from him because I think everyone fucking needs one.
Especially America. But thank you everybody who's been getting in touch and watching the show, man. We have been trying to get back in touch with you and all the comments and emails, and it's been great that you've been enjoying the show. And if you want us to talk about anything, or if you throw any ideas in and stuff like that, we're always, we get
just before we go as well,
yeah. You want to talk about something before we go, Tom?
I just want to give a shout out to Tomo, and his contemporary references, because we always do references from The Wire. Tomo's my age, but he always does references from the early 80s, so he always talks about the A-Team and fucking, do you know what I mean? Wham, stuff like that, mid-jaw or whatever. But I love it. So yeah, big shout out to him. He called himself something. He messaged me the other day. He said I can be like your Aldi, Carl Pilkington.
Why don't we just bring him in every now and again?
Fair enough. But no, on the back of what you said, great. We've had some support. We appreciate it. Appreciate everyone who's commented and liked and shared. And we do try and reply to it. And do keep sharing and liking and subscribing and letting us know what you think and giving us feedback and topics as well to discuss. Because we know it is a sort of, in many ways, it's a bit of a scary time and it's a bit of a confusing time. And we're not saying we've got the answers or anything, but we certainly want to talk about it.
Yeah. Definitely. But yeah, stay in touch and tell your friends and get subscribing and liking.
And happy birthday to which daughter is it? Is your birthday tomorrow?
Maya 8th.
Do you have to think then which I do that?
Yeah.
Which one is it? Fucking hell. We need to go get I've got it wrong here. Go get another card quick.
Mate, I'm going to fix. I've got to go downstairs and fix the brakes on a bike, and I'm looking forward to that. So yeah.
That's proper dad tackle at it, right? Thanks, Scotty. Thanks, everyone. It's been Scotty and Marty. Don't forget to share, subscribe. See you on the next one.
In a bit, man.
All right, I'll just end that, bro.